Hello dear students, welcome to a new video. I am Donna Maria and in this video we will discuss about tenses. I know that most of you are familiar with tenses. You know what tenses are and what is its importance in language. To explain in simple words or to define in simple words, verb that expresses time is called tense, or the purpose of tense in language is to indicate the time of an action. ഒരു പ്രവൃത്തി നടക്കുന്ന സമയത്തെ സൂചിപ്പിക്കുക എന്നുള്ളതാണ് ടെൻസിൻ്റെ പേർപ്പസ്. ലാംഗ്വേജിൽ ടെൻസിൻ്റെ പേർപ്പസ് നമുക്കറിയാം. ദർ ആർ ത്രീ categories to time. Time can be divided into three: past, present and future. So similarly, tenses can also be divided into three. There are three basic types of tenses: present tense, past tense and future tense. So this is a slide that explains these ideas. Time can be categorized into three: present, past, future. Therefore, there are three basic tenses corresponding to each of these times: present tense, past tense and future tense. Again, each of these basic tenses can be divided into four subcategories: simple, continuous, perfect and perfect continuous. So, in the case of present tense, we have simple present tense, present continuous tense, present perfect tense and present perfect continuous tense. In the case of past, we have simple past, past continuous, past perfect and past perfect continuous. In the case of future, we have simple future, future continuous, future perfect and future perfect continuous. We have in the slide examples of how the verbs are in each of these tenses. In the case of simple present, as an example, we have here I write a letter, I write, or he writes a letter. When it comes to continuous, I am writing or he is writing. Present perfect, I have written or he has written. Present perfect continuous, I have been writing or he has been writing. So when we move to the next tense, that is past, it becomes he wrote a letter. Past continuous, he was writing. Past perfect, he had written. Past perfect continuous, he had been writing. Moving to the third, simple future, he will write. Future continuous, he will be writing. Future perfect, he will have written. Future perfect continuous, he will have been writing. So let us move to the first. We are going to discuss each of these tenses and their subcategories in detail, and we will begin with simple present tense. As I have already explained to you, each of the tenses can be divided into four. In the case of present tense, we have as the first form simple present tense. Now let us see how a sentence can be written in simple present tense. What is the structure of a sentence in simple present tense? Simple present tense-ൽ എഴുതപ്പെട്ട ഒരു അല്ലെങ്കിൽ എഴുതേണ്ട ഒരു സെൻറ്റൻസിൻ്റെ സ്ട്രക്ചർ എങ്ങനെയായിരിക്കണം? If the subject is I, we, you, they, etc., we have the structure as I, we, you, they plus root form of the verb plus object. As an example, I write a letter, we write a letter, you write a letter and they write a letter. So when I, we, you, they are the subjects, verb is always the root form of the verb. Root form refers to the present form of the verb without s or es. And if the subject is he or she or it, the root form of the verb gets an addition of s or es with it. As an example, he writes a letter, she writes a letter. So with these subjects, we always have s or es along with the verb added to the verb. Now let us see some of the cases where we use simple present tense. Simple present tense ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്ന കുറച്ച് സാഹചര്യങ്ങൾ situations നമുക്ക് നോക്കാം. The first case is while we talk about habits or routines or repeated actions, we use simple present tense. നമ്മൾ റെഗുലറായിട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന, നിരന്തരമായിട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇടയ്ക്കിടയ്ക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്ന ആക്ഷൻസിനെ കാണിക്കാനായിട്ട് നമ്മൾ യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ടെൻസ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ സിമ്പിൾ പ്രസൻറ്റ് ടെൻസ് ആണ്. Here are some examples for you. I always wake up at 7 in the morning. Please look at the verb. Here the verb is wake. Wake is the root form of the verb. Since the subject is I, we always use the root form of the verb. I always wake up at 7 in the morning. If the subject was he, then the sentence would have been he always wakes up at 7 in the morning. If it was she, then the sentence she always wakes up at 7 in the morning. In the case of you as a subject, you always wake up at 7 in the morning. So don't forget how the verb changes depending upon the subject. Another example, I usually have breakfast at 7:30. I catch the best university at 8. I sometimes go to the cinema with my friends in the evening. I never go to bed before 11 o'clock. I often go to bed at midnight. Each of these actions are either habits or repeated actions or regular actions. So in all these cases, we use simple present tense. Okay. The second case where we use simple present tense is to talk about general truths or universal facts. Example, the sun rises in the east, the sun sets in the west, water freezes at 0 degrees, the earth revolves around the sun, her mother is English, I am French. So these are all general truths. These are all unchanging facts. So to indicate them, to talk about them, we use simple present tense. The third case where we use simple present tense is to indicate permanent situations or certain things that are true about us. For example, he works in a bank. I live in Mumbai, or I live in Kanyarapalli. So these are certain situations that we are in, our permanent situations. So to indicate them, we use simple present tense. And the next case where we use simple present tense is to give instructions or directions to somebody. To ask somebody to do something in a particular manner, we use simple present tense. Open the packet and pour the contents into the bowl. That is an instruction. So we use simple present tense. Another instruction, you take the number 6 bus and get down at the railway station. Again, simple present tense. Shut the door and turn down the music, giving direction. Again in simple present tense. And in certain cases, we use simple present tense to indicate an action that will happen in the future. ഫ്യൂച്ചറിൽ സംഭവിക്കാൻ പോകുന്ന ആക്ഷനെ കാണിക്കാൻ ചില കേസിൽ നമ്മൾ സിമ്പിൾ പ്രസൻറ്റ് ടെൻസ് ഉപയോഗിക്കും. പക്ഷേ ഈ ആക്ഷൻ എങ്ങനെയുള്ളവയായിരിക്കണം? ഫ്യൂച്ചറിൽ സംഭവിക്കുമെന്ന് നമുക്ക് ഉറപ്പുള്ള ആ ഫ്യൂച്ചർ ടൈം ഫിക്സഡ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ആക്ഷൻസിനെ കാണിക്കാനായിട്ട് നമ്മൾ സിമ്പിൾ പ്രസൻറ്റ് ടെൻസ് യൂസ് ചെയ്യാറുണ്ട്. ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ, ഹിസ് മദർ അറൈവ്സ് ടുമോറോ. ദാറ്റ് ഇസ് സംതിങ് ദാറ്റ് ഇസ് ഓൾറെഡി ഫിക്സ്ഡ്. വി നോ ദാറ്റ്. That is true. His mother arrives tomorrow. Our holiday starts on the 26th March. The time is also set, 26th March. He leaves for Mumbai tomorrow. The train leaves the station at 9 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, the train will leave. So, since the time is fixed, we can also say that sentence in simple present tense. The train leaves the station at 9 o'clock. And the sixth case where we use simple present tense is in newspaper headlines. Newspaper headlines, if you have noticed newspaper headlines, Most of the newspaper headlines use simple present tense to highlight it. So the purpose of using simple present tense in newspaper headlines is to highlight it. Man enters space. Modi urges the farmers to comply with the new reforms. Now, the seventh case where we use simple present tense is in stage directions and sports commentary. സ്റ്റേജ് ഡയറക്ഷൻസ് എന്ന് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത് നമ്മുടെ നാടകത്തിലൊക്കെ ഉള്ള കമൻസ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നറേഷൻ, അതിനെയാണ് സ്റ്റേജ് ഡയറക്ഷൻ എന്നതുകൊണ്ട് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. അതായത് ആക്ടേഴ്സ് പറയുന്ന ഡയലോഗല്ല, അതല്ലാതെ ഇടയ്ക്ക് വരുന്ന നറേഷൻ, കമൻറ്റ്, ഇതിനെയാണ് സ്റ്റേജ് ഡയറക്ഷൻ എന്ന് ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. യു നോ ദാറ്റ്. അപ്പം ആ സ്റ്റേജ് ഡയറക്ഷൻ എല്ലാം എപ്പോഴും സിമ്പിൾ പ്രസൻറ്റ് ടെൻസിലായിരിക്കും. ദ കർട്ടൻ റൈസസ്, ദ കർട്ടൻ ഫോൾസ്. Now the curtain rises. ആ curtain ഉയർന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന സമയത്താണെങ്കിലും the curtain is rising എന്നല്ലല്ലോ, the curtain rises എന്നല്ലേ പറയുന്നത്. She comes back into the room laughing hysterically. ഇതൊക്കെ ആ സ്റ്റേജ് ഡയറക്ഷൻസിൻ്റെ കുറച്ച് ഉദാഹരണങ്ങളാണ്. ഇനി സ്പോർട്സ് കമൻട്രിയിലും നമ്മൾ ശ്രദ്ധിക്കുകയാണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് അറിയാം, വി യൂസ് സിമ്പിൾ പ്രസൻറ്റ് ടെൻസ്. അപ്പം ലൈവ് കമൻട്രിയാണ്, നടന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന കാര്യമാണ് പറയുന്നതെങ്കിലും കണ്ടിന്യൂസ് ടെൻസ് അല്ല നമ്മൾ യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്, സിമ്പിൾ പ്രസൻറ്റ് ടെൻസ് ആണ്. അതിൻ്റെ ഒരു ഉദാഹരണം, ഒരു ഫുട്ബോൾ മാച്ചിലൊരു കമൻട്രി. റൂണി പ്ലേസ് ഇറ്റ് ടു വാൻ പെർസി ഹു സ്പ്രെഡ്സ് ദ ബോൾ ഔട്ട് വൈഡ് ടു ഫാൽക്കോ ഹു ട്രിപ്സ് ഓവർ ഇറ്റ്. അപ്പം റൂണി ഈസ് പ്ലേയിങ് ഇറ്റ് ടു വാൻ പെർസി ഹു ഇസ് നൗ സ്പ്രെഡിങ് ദ ബോൾ ഔട്ട് ടു ഫാൽക്കോ ആൻഡ് ഹി ട്രിപ്ഡ് ഓവർ ഇറ്റ് എന്നൊന്നും അല്ല പറയുന്നത്. ഇങ്ങനെ പല ടെൻസുകളല്ല അവിടെ യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ശ്രദ്ധിക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ അതെല്ലാം സിമ്പിൾ പ്രസൻറ്റ് ടെൻസിൽ തന്നെയായിരിക്കും. അപ്പോൾ ലൈവ് കമൻട്രി ആണെങ്കിലും ഇപ്പം നടന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന കാര്യമാണെങ്കിലും അവിടെ സിമ്പിൾ പ്രസൻറ്റ് ടെൻസ് ആണ്. റൂണി പ്ലേസ് ഇറ്റ് ടു വാൻ പെർസി ഹു സ്പ്രെഡ്സ് ദ ബോൾ ഔട്ട് വൈഡ് ടു ഫാൽക്കോ ഹു ട്രിപ്സ് ഓവർ ഇറ്റ്. എല്ലാം നമുക്കറിയാം. മെയിൻ വേർബ്സ് ഒക്കെ നോക്കുകയാണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അതെല്ലാം പ്രസൻറ്റ് ഫോമിലാണ്, സിമ്പിൾ പ്രസൻറ്റ് ടെൻസിലാണ് കൊടുത്തിരിക്കുന്നത്. സോ ഇൻ stage directions, instructions on stage, as well as in sports commentary, we use simple present tense. Okay. So here we can see there are certain verbs which cannot be used in continuous tense. That is, certain verbs cannot take the ing form. These verbs are known as stative verbs. You will discuss more about stative verbs in your chapter on verbs. Here, remember this, stative verbs are those verbs that cannot be used in the continuous tense, that cannot take ing form. Therefore, sentences constructed using these verbs will naturally be in present tense, in its simple present form. Examples of stative verbs are like. We don't say liking. Love. Even though there is loving, love is not an action, it is a state. So loving, I am loving you is wrong. I love you, right? Hate, I hate you. Want, wanting is wrong. Need, there is no needing. See is also the right form is to use see. I can see you. Hear, agree, realize, etc. There are so many verbs which cannot be used in the ing form. Those are stative verbs. So the sentences constructed with these verbs will be in simple present tense. Okay children, now we will see how to construct different types of sentences using simple present tense. You know there are different types of sentences. We have statements, we have positive sentences like those we discussed in our examples. We have negative sentences. Negative sentences are sentences that express denial. If a positive sentence is I go to school, the corresponding negative sentence is I do not go to school, a sentence that express denial. Okay. And we have questions, we have exclamatory sentences. So we have different types of sentences, and we will see how we construct different types of sentences using simple present tense. We will begin with affirmative sentences or positive sentences. Here are some examples. I go to school. Please look at the subject and the verb. Since the subject is I, we always have verb in the plural form or the root form. I go to school. We know to play. Again, the subject is we. Therefore, we have the plural form of the verb or root form of the verb. We know to play. You dance to the music. You dance. Subject is you. Therefore, verb is in the root form. He plays drums. He, since the subject is he, the verb takes s or es to it. So here he plays drums. She crosses the road carefully. It eats fruits. They live. They live here. I think that point is clear to you. Okay. Now let us see how to construct negative sentences using simple present tense. As I've already mentioned, negative sentences are those sentences that express denial. For example, I want it is a positive sentence and the corresponding negative sentence is I do not want it. Before we move on to further examples, we need to have certain things in mind. We need to notice certain things in mind. First point is, the verb in a negative sentence will always remain in the root form or the plural form, that is without s or es. The verb in a negative sentence, no matter what the subject is, will always remain in the root form. Even if the subject is he, she or it, if the sentence is a negative sentence, the verb is always in the root form. This is the most important point that you have to keep in mind. I can give you an example. Let us take the sentence given in the slide. I want it is the positive sentence and the corresponding negative sentence is I do not want it. Obviously here the verb is in the root form. Now let us see what happens when the subject is he. The positive sentence is he wants it, but the corresponding negative sentence is he does not want it. He does not want it. Look at the verb, it is want, not wants. So, in a negative sentence, even if the subject is he, she or it, the verb will always remain in the root form. So this is the most important point that you have to keep in mind while discussing negative sentences constructed using simple present tense. The next major point is do will come after I, we, they. If the subject in a negative sentence is I, we or they, do will follow it. I do not want it. And if the subject in a negative sentence is he, she or it, does will come after it. He does not want it. So if the subject is he, she or it, what follows the subject is does. And if the subject is I, we or they, what follows the subject is do. I do not want it and he does not want it. I do not want it. We do not want it. They do not want it. He does not want it. She does not want it. It does not want it. Alright. Here are more examples of negative sentences. Please notice the subject and what follows the subject. I do not go alone. We do not know swimming. You do not shout loudly. They do not run on the road. When the subject is he, she or it, the sentence becomes He does not like ice cream. She does not eat fish. It does not pluck flowers. I hope now the point is clear to you. When the subject is I, we, you or they, what follows the subject is do not in a negative sentence, and if the subject is he, she or it, what follows the sentence if it is a negative sentence is does not. Okay. Now let us see how to construct another type of sentence in simple present tense. Constructing interrogative sentences in simple present tense. An interrogative sentence is nothing but a question. How will we construct questions in simple present tense? Let us see it. So, like in the case of negative sentences, here too we have to notice certain points. The first point is interrogative sentences or questions in simple present tense begin with do or does. Interrogative sentences in simple present always begin with do or does. And verb is always in the root form. In a question, verb will always be in the root form, that is the plural form, without s or es. Do will come before I, we, you, they. In a question, if the subject is I, we, you or they, do will come before it. And does will come before the subjects he, she and it. Interrogative sentences end with the punctuation question mark. Here are some examples of questions in simple present tense. Please notice the question word as well as the subject. Do I know her? Do we spend much? Do you waste time? Do they shout loudly? So in the case of I, we, you and they, do will always come before them. And now, does he talk unnecessarily? Does she look good? Does it behave well? In the case of he, she and it, does will come before them. I hope this much is clear to you, and here we end our discussion on simple present tense, and we will now move on to present continuous tense.